finally,
Yes.
we can wrap up our series of postmortems for college football. We're going through every team in the state, all 12 of them, and breaking down what went right, what went wrong, answering a few questions about each FBS team in the Lone Star State. We've arrived at the best team in the state. The Houston Cougars were, in my view, unquestionably the best, most successful team in the state.
Agreed.
If you put A&M against Houston, I think it'll be a really good game. But I think Houston's the best team in the state. That's my opinion. I think that they were the best team in the state in 2016.
I think Houston's best 2 wins beat A&M's best 2 wins. I think that's probably your deal breaker.
I think that's probably right. So let's break down what went right for the Houston Cougars, who finished the year 9-4. Is that right? 9-4? Did I get that right? Yeah, 9-4.
Yeah, they lost the bowl game.
They did. That was a stupid bowl game. Anyway, what went right? This team was a killing machine against the run. A killing machine. They were third in the nation in yards per carry allowed, 3.1. Third in the nation. They were fabulous. Fifth in the nation in rushing yards allowed per game. They were fantastic.
I factor that in with the fact that the Navy game happened.
Exactly right. They did a really good job up front. Their front seven was exceptional. It was really, really good. They also got after the quarterback. Their defensive line play and linebacker play was incredible. 19th in the nation in sack percentage. They did a fantastic job there. The other side of this, from an offensive perspective, Greg Ward Jr. was pretty good. I don't think you can elevate him into the great, but he was very good.
Yeah.
And
I think he was dealing with injuries way more than he has.
Banged up, but Houston ends up 5th in the nation in completion percentage.
Yep.
The accuracy was there. They end up 14th in the nation in passing yards per game. They were getting it done through the air. Okay, so that's what went right for Houston. Overall, both units were pretty good.
Yeah.
Offense was 41st in the nation in total offense. They were 16th in the nation in total defense. You can't turn your nose up at that. Right. That's what gets you 9 wins.
Right.
Doing things like that, especially in the defensive front, which was exceptional. So let's talk about what went wrong and what kept them, in my view, from being a truly great team and maybe in the college football playoff conversation. It starts with the fact that they simply could not run the ball. They could not. They were really bad running the ball. They were 119th in the nation in rush yards per carry, 107th in the nation in rush yards per game. And the thing is, I understand that the offense is built around that you can't isolate Greg Ward Jr.'s running attack because he's a key piece of that. But the problem is that their running backs just did not get the job done. Everyone who wasn't Greg Ward Jr. did not run the ball well. Their leading rusher was Duke Catalan, and I know he was banged up for a lot of this game. 528 yards. Okay? They just did not get the job done on the ground. The other side of it is that for an elusive quarterback, he got sacked a lot. Okay? 88th in the nation in sack percentage. The offensive line overall just wasn't up to snuff.
Right.
Okay? That's part of it. Here's the other thing. And the biggest thing when we talked about what made the 2015 Houston Cougars so successful.
Yeah.
We talked about them being able to turn the ball over and being able to make plays defensively come up with that big play. It just wasn't there this year. They were 109th in the nation in interception percentage. They just did not pick the ball off, and that ends up leading to a turnover margin, which is they're in the negative, they're in the red in the turnover margin. Okay? Houston has always been based, their defense has always been based on we're going to come up with that big play.
Right.
We're going to get that pick. We're going to get that fumble. We're going to make these plays. And they gave the ball away more than they took it away. They were only 1.4 takeaways per game. That's not going to do it for that kind of defense. Mm-hmm. And so the secondary really, in my view, let them down. Now, it's tough to say that because, look, a lot of their numbers from a passing defense perspective were pretty solid. Look,
especially considering the losses, right?
They were 65th in the nation in passing defense. They're middle of the road.
Right.
But the difference was they couldn't come up with that big play.
Right. Missing William Jackson.
Missing those guys in the secondary. And so for me, those are the two biggest issues that doomed them. The secondary did not come up with the big plays when they needed them, and they did not have and they could not run the ball. And that is very problematic for that team. So when we talk about defense, or when we talk about MVP, I can go one of two ways here. Mm-hmm. You could go with Greg Ward Jr.
Right.
Because Greg Ward Jr. was awesome.
One of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Best quarterbacks in the country. You could also go with Ed Oliver.
Yep.
Ed Oliver was everything he was hyped up to be and more in his first year at Houston. He led the team in tackles for loss with 22.5. He had 5 sacks. He was all over the place. He forced 3 fumbles. He was a monster as a freshman. So I think there is a reasonable argument to be made for either of those. If you want to say that, Greg Ward Jr. was the team MVP, I got no issue with that. If you want to say Ed Oliver was the best player, the team MVP for the Houston Cougars, I think there's a very reasonable argument to be made.
Yeah,
for that
I can see it both ways, especially with the way the run game was. You know how much they really did need to lean on Greg Ward and the injuries. And then, like you said, defense didn't quite make the plays they normally do, and Ed Oliver was a big reason that they were able to hold some things together.
You're exactly right. So we take a look forward, onward and upward. Where does Houston go from here? Well, they're going to need to. They've got some pieces to replace. Now, the good news is the entire offensive line's back. That's a great place to start. Okay, they are bringing back, even though the running game did not get going, they do bring back Dylan Burden. They bring back Duke Catalon. They bring back a lot of guys. The big guy they got to replace. I mean, this is going to stun you, but they've got to replace their quarterback.
Yeah,
they got to replace Greg Ward Jr. And that is going to be a lot easier said than done because the offense really kind of flowed around him. Now, where do they go from a quarterback perspective? You got a couple options. I think everybody look at Kyle Postma and says, okay, pretty good in his, when he came in, and whenever he came in for a banged up Greg Ward Jr., he was fine. Or with a new coach in Major Applewhite, does he want to put his stamp on the team? Does he turn to a guy like De'Aaron King, who got in the game a little bit, did throw a touchdown pass? De'Aaron King, I think De'Aaron King represents the future of this program. I really do. I really think that he's the guy. And I thought he was a superstar at Manville. I think he can be a superstar at Houston. Now, there's other guys coming. Look.
I'd say it's Kyle Allen.
You think it's Kyle Allen?
I think it is. Just for the upside, right?
I understand.
Like I think his floor is the highest, and I think his upside we don't know.
I think
he didn't really reach at A&M.
Look, Kyle Allen. I'm torn on Kyle Allen because I do think Kyle Allen's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that he clearly transferred to Houston with the idea of being the guy when Greg Ward Jr. leaves, and I understand that. I wonder. And Major Applewhite will probably say all the right things and say, oh, it's an open competition and blah, 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 blah. I mean, make no mistake, Kyle Allen enters the offseason as the odds-on favorite to be their quarterback. But I do wonder if Major Applewhite wants to put a stamp on his new program, and say, you know what?
Pull a rabbit out of a hat.
This is our
guy.
Something
different. Yeah.
This is our guy. I mean, remember, when they did that with Johnny Manziel, everyone was like,
right.
Oh, man, you're going to start him over these older guys?
Yeah.
It ended up working out. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
Just me.
I hear you.
From a defensive perspective, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You're bringing back, in my view, your best player. You're bringing back Ed Oliver. But you are losing Cameron Malvo. You're losing Tyus Bowser. You're losing Stephen Taylor. You're losing Brandon Wilson. You're losing a lot of really key parts of this defense. So, while you have the big hog molly up front and the focal point back for another year, and he should be even better as a sophomore, there are some holes to fill behind them, especially in the linebacker core. They're going to need to they got to replace half their linebackers. So I don't know. Houston is there, and then obviously there's the new coach. So Houston has a lot of moving parts right now, and there are a lot of things that if they were to just settle as we think they're going to settle, they're probably an 8-win team next year.
Yeah.
If they just kind of settle into Now that could, I think that they have the opportunity to be a lot better. I think they have an opportunity if things don't go their way and they can't find replacements on the defensive perspective, then they could slide back to the pack in the AAC. But for me, a lot of all eyes are going to be on the quarterbacks.
And I think that's down to age more than talent.
Yeah.
I think the next couple waves of kids that they've recruited are going to be really good. But you're right. You're just replacing so many pieces. It's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
You know?
It's going to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. So that's it. Those are the postmortems. We did it, Max. We did it.
Hooray!